Good evening. Let us start with a new class, that is the cerebellum. There are few things that we should remember before we actually go into the detail. So our objectives for this lecture is that at the end of this lecture, one should learn what is the functional anatomy of cerebellum. We should understand the neural circuit of cerebellum, should know what are the afferent and the efferent pathways, coming and going from the cerebellum, functions of cerebellum, and features of cerebellar dysfunction. Before we really go into detail about the functional anatomy of cerebellum, there are few things to understand. Cerebellum is also called as the silent area of the brain. Why so? Because this excitation of cerebellum may not cause any conscious sensation, but it is really important because if there is any cerebellar dysfunction, it will lead to an uncoordinated movement. Vital functions, especially the rapid muscular activities such as running again is a pattern, typing, you're moving your fingers at one speed, playing the piano, or even talking when you're using your tongue, you are kind of making a lot of coordination to vocalize or make any phonation, right? So if there is any lesion to cerebellum, we will definitely have a problem in all these type of rapid muscular activities. Then cerebellum also helps to sequence the motor activities. What does this mean? Suppose we want to do any motor activity, starting from a simple lifting of a pen. Lifting of a pen requires a planning, it requires an intention, and then it requires a background setup of your body, and ultimately it requires the movement of your hand towards the pen, and then ultimately you have to pick up the pen and bring it close to you. Hence, it has lot of sequence of motor activities. These all motor activities, the sequential motor activities, are also monitored by the cerebellum. Cerebellum receives continuously updated information. What does this mean? So it has an information as what the plan is. It has an information as what my body position is. And it has also a copy of it as what is the execution, what type of activity has been executed. Plus, the funny part is that it also has a copy of future movement of your body. So it plans. So it has got, it is kind of updated even with planning, and it is updated how the plan has been carried out, and it is also updated as what the future plan is. It receives continuous sensory information. From where? From the peripheral part of the body, which gives us a sequential change in the status of each part of the body. May it be the position, the rate of movement, the forces which is acting on, and so forth. Cerebellum compares the actual movements, and that's what I was telling you. It compares what is the actual movement which is being carried out, plus compares with what? Compares with a copy of intention. So it compares us with the plan. What was the planning for this movement? It receives a copy of that. Plus, it also receives a copy from the spinal cord that this was the actual movement. So it compares these actual movements as depicted by the peripheral sensory feedback, coming informations with the movements which are intended by the motor system. It compares, it corrects. So cerebellum also aids the cerebral cortex in planning the next sequential movement. A fraction of a second in advance. This is where I told you. It knows as what will be the future position, what should be the future position of your body. That's why it helps in rapid type of movements. While you are in a current movement, it plans this future movement and it sends that one copy of that to the cerebellar cortex, thus helping the person to progress smoothly from one movement to next. What are the functions of cerebellum? One thing that you're seeing here is very important for smooth, coordinated body movement. A simple act which is being carried here is putting on the shoes. Now look at this. If you're trying to put on the shoes, you actually need to maintain a posture. You need to maintain your posture, erect posture. Plus, you have to flex one of your limb. You have to direct your hand towards your foot. You have to carry out certain motor movements so that you're able to put on the shoes. If you come to cerebellum actually, I can remember the functions of cerebellum as a triad, 3 points, 3 important functions. What are those? Tone, posture and balance, coordination of movement. So anybody asks you, what are the functions of cerebellum? Even if you forget everything out what you have learned just few slides before, don't forget these 3 functions of cerebellum. These 3 are the triad most important functions of your cerebellum. Maintenance of tone. Tone we know. We have learned a lot about tone in our previous lectures. So cerebellum does has connections to the lower motor neurons where it tries to maintain the tone. It is important for posture and balance. We know that there are connections from the cerebellum, coming from the eyes, the visual system, some connections from the vestibular system, some connections coming from the spinal cord. They all are coming to the cerebellum. Cerebellum also has a connection with the basal ganglia. It has a connection with the cerebral cortex. Now, because of its connection with the vestibular apparatus, with visual system, with spinal cord, it is very essential for the maintenance of posture and balance. Coordination of movement. When you are doing any rapid movement or otherwise any movement, you require a coordination. Okay? A simple act of touching your nose with closed eyes. Okay? And if you are asked to do that very fast, there is a very high chance that you may miss out your nose point had there been no cerebellum. Thanks to God, there is cerebellum. So you're able to do the coordination of movement.